NetSparker, the developers of a comprehensive automated web security platform that includes web vulnerability scanning, assessment, and management. NetSparker's desktop and cloud-based security solutions employ a unique and dead-accurate vulnerability scanning engine that automatically verifies vulnerabilities and provides a proof of concept. For more information, visit them on the web at securityweekly.com/NetSparker. Are you an enterprise dissatisfied with overpriced analytics software that can't keep up with modern data? If so, then GravWell is the solution for you. GravWell is an unstructured data analytics platform for enterprises who demand total data visibility across their network. GravWell lets your security team go beyond the SIM and fuse data sources to correlate and answer questions you didn't know needed to be asked. Go to gravwell.io/securityweekly for an unlimited data trial and gain uncompromising visibility today. Welcome back, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly. We're looking for high-quality guest suggestions for our Enterprise Security Weekly podcast. You can visit securityweekly.com/guests and fill out the guest suggestion form and recommend folks. Make sure you get their permission, or at least give them a heads up that you've suggested that they be on the show. So if we contact them, they know that we're going to do that. Magno Gomes is here with us for this segment. He is a network and security specialist with more than 15 years in cybersecurity. He is the director of sales engineering for Core Security and passionate about helping organizations manage the ever-changing risk landscape. You can visit securityweekly.com/core security for more information. Magno, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Paul. Glad to be here.
Nice to have you. Today, you wanted to talk about something that's always been specifically on my radar, having led a lot of VM and pen testing programs, is that correlating and quantifying those findings from vulnerability management with penetration testing. How has the core security kind of process and technology evolved that allows us to do that today?
Yeah, no, great question. So, I mean, for a long time, I've been with Core or working with the Impact tool for about 10 years, right? So over time, you definitely see things changing as the maturity kind of grows from the vulnerability assessment side of the house into pen testing, right? So there's a lot of confusion, or there still is to this day, where people will mistaken a vulnerability assessment as a pen test, right? Oh, no, I get that done, no problem, when all they're getting is just a whole bunch of data. What they're also not realizing is that applying that and using that information for a pen test can really help out, diving deeper, right? A scan or a vulnerability assessment, it's more of a breadth type of test, right? You're scanning everything in an organization, and then even IoT devices, right? Cloud, all that stuff, and then being able to try to make sense of all the vulnerabilities that are coming back, hundreds upon thousands of that. Applying that and feeding it into a tool like Impact allows you to actually prioritize and execute some of those exploits that are available there as well. But that's just not all. I mean, on top of that, you can actually expand on your testing and even see where some of those vulnerabilities that are being identified through your programs are, where they can lead to. Can they actually be pivoted, things like that. So with the tool that we use, being able to ingest that, we can offer a couple of different things, right? And what I see is definitely the same pattern that happens quite a bit. Is they'll ingest, they'll run the exploits, and that'll be it. They'll just say, hey, did they work, did they not work? Let's patch, let's remediate. So they'll do that. Others will take that information and use it more like a blueprint to kind of see, okay, I know, what that system has, but can that system lead to something else, right? So our tool and other tools out there allow, users to be able to validate those vulnerabilities they're finding, and quite a bit of them as well.
Well, one thing I like is the ability to take all of the findings from the vuln scanners and, regardless of severity level, be able to chain those together. Has that gotten a little easier inside of the Impact product to be able to do that? Because that's oftentimes how we describe it's properly named, right? The impact of the vulnerabilities together.
Right. Right. No, you're exactly right. What a lot of teams will do is they'll start looking at the criticals and highs and kind of miss out on some of the mediums that are there that can actually be put together and allow for some type of exploitation to happen, right? So being able to do that and have that guidance in a tool like Impact really, really helps to kind of enhance that. And I'm not talking about those that have like a full vulnerability management platform. Yes, it can still be helpful there, but those platforms now, as advanced as they become, can get you pretty close, but you're still not testing, you're still not executing. So there's no 100% way of validating, right, that that's there until you do that pen test. And being able to, we'll call it automate for lack of a better term, but being able to automate at least the findings, the processing of that, and then allowing the user to go off and then expand on that test is what a tool like Impact will actually help them do.
Yeah, what I also like too is I think oftentimes I've had systems that I'm responsible for claim themselves to be vulnerable, but there's just no way to get an exploit to work easily, right? And sure, someone could probably make it work, right? But if you can't take the highly curated and awesome exploits and Impact and make that work, that in and of itself is a finding, right? Yeah, you're limiting the probability, at least. You're not excluding the probability 100%,
Well, you're
but
limiting it,
you're
yeah.
limiting that, right? Is
Yeah.
that something you've considered, with the tool and its ability to have that as a finding?
And you're right. I mean, another misconception a lot of times is people will say, well, your tool should be able to break into anything. No, that's not how, pen testing works. And you're right. If there's a vulnerability that's supposed to be critical, it's not going to, necessarily allow you to exploit that vulnerability. So giving you other options or other ways to potentially expand and maybe test further, yeah. But you're right. Being able to not be exploited. Yes, the vulnerability scanner is telling us there. We've pen tested it. We can't get through it. So that's a reassurance that, hey, there is some type of, maybe even some controls in place that are actually preventing us from going there. It may still be vulnerable. They may not be able to patch it, but they're put some type of security controls in place that doesn't allow that exposure to happen.
Mm. Or it's the other way, where the exploit actually does work because your team's done the work to expand upon that exploit, maybe find other vulnerabilities or aspects of it that others hadn't considered, and now that's more of a threat than you thought it was, and it can go in the other direction.
Sure, definitely. I mean, I've been on engagements where, scanners will say, hey, you're vulnerable, but this is something like a local vulnerability, or it can be exploited, but, you're not on the box yet. Okay, and they'll ignore that type of stuff. But being able to show, look, if I was able to get on the box, even with credentials, that vulnerability may have not been critical to you, but look what I could do to it. And I've done that a few times where, with the tool, to be able to show, look, I can put myself on a box. Just imagine I hijacked or I harvested some credentials, got on my system. Yeah, I may not still have full control, but this exploit that I'm about to use, if it works, I'll actually be able to do that. And then you can actually show that and then build off of that as well. So you're right. I mean, it does work in both directions.
And what I liked about Impact 2, Jeff, and one second, what I liked about Impact 2 is once you do get on the box, it was easy to test dozens of local privilege escalation exploits just in the click of a button, which saved like a ton of work, right? You want to evaluate the risk, and there could be some kind of local privilege escalation. You don't know whether it's going to work or not in the given configuration, but the tool can tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, the tool can be working on those types of actions while you're, looking ahead and even trying to research maybe as you're, as that's doing that, you can be looking at your next move if that doesn't work, right? And then you can start doing that. And that's what the tool kind of really helps from, validating those vulnerabilities and doing pen testing.
Jeff.
Because this is one of my favorite topics. Could you, just for the benefit of our discussion, I acknowledge that there is no universal agreement on a definition of the terms that we're talking about. But for the purposes of our discussion, could you at least give us some sort of a working definition, at least of how core security defines A, vulnerability assessment, B, vulnerability scanning, and C, penetration testing, please?
Yeah. So sure. So a vulnerability assessment is basically using a bunch of tools, which could be which will include a scanner, to go over and see what other vulnerabilities, what vulnerabilities may be there. It could be patch level, what type of, what version of software, things of that nature, and then provide that information back. Not necessarily trying it, but saying, hey, patch levels are missed, or better yet, ports are open that could be potentially leveraged there, right? So that's what a vulnerability assessment with a vulnerability scan will get you. That and hundreds, thousands of vulnerabilities, depending again on what you're scanning and how many systems you're scanning as well. So again, giving you a report, prioritizing that for you to actually go and patch those systems or put in controls to have those vulnerabilities no longer be able to be exploited. Now, what a penetration test does is actually goes and tries to leverage those vulnerabilities and see if it can actually exploit that, expose it, gain access to a system because that's living on that system there as well. Now, it's not just vulnerabilities themselves, right? From a scanner, I'm saying, but giving you the ability and techniques and tools to be able to then try other methods to gain access to a system or gain entry to a system, right? Be it a dictionary attack, be it some kind of drive-by or whatnot. But being able to do that in addition to validating vulnerabilities is what pen testing kind of falls under and how we look at it as well. And then it can go much further, of course, but yeah, that's kind of how we've been interpreting it or having it been discussed since I've been here. And it's always a great conversation too when you come across people who are overwhelmed with scanner data and they just don't know what to do sometimes with all that.
Well, it's funny, and if I can go off on a slight tangent, our previous interview was Rapid7, and we didn't get into it on the air, but there's been this little war going on in the last week or so between Rapid7 and Qualys, because Rapid7 came out with a campaign. Okay, there's 10 reasons why you should really give up on Qualys and go with Rapid7, and Tenable's not even mentioned. But if you think of Tenable, Qualys, and Rapid7 as sort of the big three vulnerability scan companies, at least historically or classically, I think it's fascinating and somewhat humorous that for so many years these companies have prided themselves and have been in this pissing contest on who can find more vulnerabilities and find more and find more and find more, and we can find them everywhere, and they're more accurate and fewer false positives. And now the game seems to have become, okay, given the fact that we've given you 10 million vulnerabilities that you can't deal with, now we're going to help you in different varying ways, and they all have a different sort of methodology of how to pare it down to the ones that you care about, which I think is what you're trying to offer, and hopefully this is what we're going to talk about with your product is, how do you sort of winnow out all the, not that it's not legitimate at some level, but the noise of the 10 million vulnerabilities and just deal with the 10 or 100 or 500 that you really need to worry about the most. I just think it's kind of humorous that, the game has been find everything, and now it's, well, but you don't have to worry about everything. Worry about this over here, and it's designed to be smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah, I mean, those vendors too are putting intelligence or engines into their platforms so they can actually filter that out better. Because now they're, like you just said, all those 1,000 vulnerabilities, trying to make sense of it and prioritize. Shoot, even some of these are applying network diagrams, right, to be able to lay out your attack path potentially there to show that. So it's always been like you just said, like that type of contest where it's like, now who's got the most scans, who can find the most vulnerabilities, and then now it doesn't necessarily matter. It's okay, well, which ones show me what customers want, or show me the ones that I should be really, really worried about, and feeding it into a tool like into Impact, you can immediately start testing and calling those out pretty much from a low-hanging fruit, right? Try to get the ones that are really susceptible that the scanner's telling you, but then move into that next phase pretty easily from the tool to try to expand on that. Try to actually maybe just focus in on a small portion. Maybe you don't want to do all thousands of systems on your network, but you have critical ones. And being able to give you that visibility and that capability to really test quickly and efficiently, we'll call it. I don't want to say safely because, again, we're using exploits here, but there are, the way the tool is designed, there is, ways to use the exploits in that type of manner as well.
And what I like too, in dealing with vulnerability management and cutting through the noise, if you will, for lack of a better phrase, is one aspect. But as you step back as a security team, we were talking about the previous segment, you've got other pathways and threats that you want to see. What's the impact? How resilient are we? And we've got a pen test scheduled, and a Joff or a Tyler's going to come in and do a test. But what can we do as an internal security team? And short of customizing your own tools, the way that I've used Impact in the past, I think is a really good way for internal teams to be able to accelerate their testing, is say, okay, well, let's just put the core Impact agent, which I love, which is you basically out of the box get a callback server in the Impact interface and an agent. what I've done is put it on a USB thumb drive and then just use social engineering to go see where is that effective and how far can I get with it. You don't need to be a Joff or a Tyler and customize your own tools to do that, right? You can literally have this one tool and even hand it off to other people on your team to accomplish those goals and be able to test the effectiveness or ineffectiveness of your security program independent of vulnerabilities even.
Right. No, exactly. And any level of experience really from a pen testing or from a tester perspective can take the tool and start doing those types of techniques and activities and testing themselves. And you're right. I mean, a scanner is not going to be able to tell you that, your controls in place or your security layers that you have are being, are protecting. But if you're able to take that type of data and then pen test and then try to maneuver and are getting blocked and are seeing, testing your security infrastructure at the same time, that's much more of a value that's being provided now together with a scan and a pen test, and not just a vulnerability assessment is what I meant to say.
Yeah, my favorite story about that is I was pen testing a college university, and I had a student with me who may have graduated recently, but young enough to pass as a student, and I am a thumb drive with the Core Impact agent on it. I said, hey, go to all like human resources, finance, the sensitive areas in the organization, and here's your story. You're telling me for the help desk, you're taking an inventory or just doing a quick test. You're going to plug this USB drive in, copy the executable to the desktop, double click it, and you're done. And I mean, the impact console was just lighting up as he went to, department to department, with a very basic story. And people were just very trusting, right? Yep. And the lesson for the organization was of that social engineering. And yes, you should have a pen test firm come in and do social engineering, right? But in the meantime, you can make progress internally without a great expense or a great effort using the tool. And that's what I think is a good lesson.
Yeah. I mean, phishing exercise, right? Being able to send emails to users and testing the susceptibility. I mean, a scanner or an assessment won't necessarily give you that information that, hey, they're clicking and they're letting you into the system. So being able to do that in Impact as well, again, helps that that area where, scanners don't concentrate on. Yeah, they'll concentrate on the endpoint system of the user, but not on the gullibility or the susceptibility of that user clicking or downloading something.
I want to chat about something now. I'm curious. I want to see and hear kind of some of the mindset around the acquisition of Cobalt Strike. Maybe if you can, some of the plans, how that integrates, and just kind of what that means to both Impact and to customers using, Cobalt Strike both internally and kind of as consultants.
Yeah, so that just happened. Great question, and kind of figured that might happen. But right now, I think we're not really changing anything of how they integrate together. Well, let me just say we're going to look at a way to integrate at least something quickly where exploits could potentially be used in the framework of Cobalt Strike. At least the first phase, but at the time being, we're going to kind of leave them separate and not really change the way things are. Again, the dust is still settling, so we'll definitely be doing more with that. Eventually, the plan is going to have some tighter integration where, again, it'll be easily portable for those exploits to come over and be used in an engagement from the Cobalt side. Initially, when the merger happened, or when we were looking the acquisition, happened, we were thinking of the red team and being able to provide that weigh in with a tool like Impact, and then from there being able to pivot, maneuver, do all that red teaming exercises after the fact, move laterally across, and then the combination of the two, you can do that. Impact today, of course, has its pivoting capability. It's agents that you can pivot off of. Paul's talked about that a little bit, right? But being able to now use our own exploits in that, like today, you can use Metasploit, the framework, and have that be an option. So that's kind of where we're looking at the moment. Not a lot of decision has been made onto what the direction is going to be going forward. Is there going to be a product of both forces combined together, or is it just going to be integration? That's stuff that we're still trying to work out.
I think a great feature of both products, Tyler and Magno, is that the ability for both products to work with a team, right? They both had very good features that supported a team. And again, the use case that I liked for both tools is to have an internal team with both senior and junior members utilizing these tools to be very effective. I'm maybe a senior member in a team, maybe I'm a junior member in a team, and I get so far in a test and then I go, you know what? Now I got to pass this off, right? Or vice versa. And being able to do that with these tools, I think, is very powerful and a big differentiator between some of the other tools that might exist in the market or tools you've created yourselves, is having that team collaboration, the ability to pass off and keep going on a test.
Yeah, that's exactly how we came up with the teaming feature in Impact, was because we were coming across more and more red teams being interested in wanting to use our tool, or pen testing teams in general, like you're saying, with the different levels in it. So we created that teaming function to be able to do that. And you're right, Cobalt Strike already had that built in, and obviously that's kind of what their bread and butter is as well too. So
I think from like the offensive side, and even from internal teams, the general consensus is like, this is super exciting news. This could be really, really pivotal and very big as far as a tooling capability. It was, I guess, a little bit of a surprise more than anything, but is definitely has a lot of potential, and we're very hopeful there. So.
yeah, I mean, honestly, we just literally just started talking to Raphael Mudge, obviously, as you know who he is, and just kind of started brainstorming on figuring out, okay, where can the two products align and be strong together, and that's kind of where we're going towards right now. So yeah, it was exciting for us. Me and my SE team, we're pretty excited once we heard that, because we were coming up and talking to a lot of red teams and always coming up against Cobalt. So it was good to see that now they're in our tool belt, and the plan is to move into some type of combination for that and provide a stronger solution.
Yeah, Jeff. Sorry, Magno. Sorry, Tyler. And then
on the team.
Sorry, we're limited on time. Magno's got a hard stop. So Jeff.
Oh. A hard stop when? In 4 minutes?
Yes.
In 4, yeah.
Oh, crap. All right. So real quick, I went to your website and I found that you support retail, which means you touch on PCI. So I get to ask PCI questions.
Here we go.
Do you sell your product to companies that perform penetration testing exercises for companies that have to do PCI? And or are you selling it to, like, you say you support retail according to your website, and I'm not going to hold you to what your marketing team puts on your website necessarily. But do you sell your product to companies and let them do their own? We run core impact meets penetration testing requirement for PCI.
So we don't say it's a replacement for them, right? Because they still require that third party to come in and do that testing, but to help in getting them prepared for those audits for that PCI test. That's kind of how we'll address it. Back in the day,
good news for your sales team is PCI doesn't require third party pen tests
anymore.
It can be done. It can be never. It's never been a requirement.
I always thought it was a third party test.
Yeah.
No, it's it needs to be it can be somebody internally. It can be the company itself. It's got to be somebody that's qualified to do it, to do the pen test, and they have to have sort of organizational independence, as that makes sense. But pen testing does not have to be a third party. So you got a whole new marketing campaign to start.
Yeah,
you're welcome.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much on that one.
Sure.
But yeah, no, that's good to know, and I bet you, that will change the focus. Yeah, I was under the impression too that it had to have been a third party, or for scanning purposes too, as well. For QSA, right?
Mostly penetration testing companies try to promote that for some reason.
Right. You wonder why, right? So, Magno, today, if folks are listening, right, and they've heard some of the use cases we've described, and they want to try out either Cobalt Strike or Core Impact or both, right? What does that experience look like today?
Well, we can offer them, on-prem evaluations where they'll come to us and request it, and we'll give them a copy of the license for a limited time and be able to use it. We really don't restrict what they can test when we give them the license, or we can give them a lab environment moving to AWS, shortly in AWS, where they can actually use the Impact tool in a contained lab environment that has about 6 vulnerable systems. And they can do phishing, they can do web application testing, as well as network.
And is that for both products? Like, how well integrated is that demo? Or do you still go to Cobalt Strike to get a separate demo?
Yeah, you'll still have to go to Cobalt Strike to get a separate one. It'll come funneled in the back and the behind the scenes to us, but it'll be through the Cobalt Strike website at the moment.
Right, because I can see teams wanting to test out both now that they're under the same umbrella. So
definitely, yeah, and
I would definitely do that. I recommend you test out both, right? I mean, because they're under the same umbrella, there's going to be more integration. So.
Oh yeah! As soon as the acquisition happened, we were already asking for our own copies to start putting in our own labs,
nice.
And start building out on that as well. So we're going to get there. There is no online lab for, that I offer for Cobalt, but an on-prem, not a problem.
Awesome. Magno, thank you so much for appearing on Pulse Security Weekly.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
With that, we'll take a short break, come back, and talk about the security news for this week. Stay tuned.